Well, the tabloids are on the side of the ruling class. I mean, people don't like this terminology. Viscount Rothermere and all the other Murdoch, the oligarch, and all the others that own the Sun, the Times, the Express, and the Mail, and all those outlets are on the side of driving down wages, driving down profits. Most of the people that are working on those media outlets are not employed. They've all been driven down into precarious employment, self-employed, casualised work. And they've got an agenda that wants to defeat the unions so that they can have their way. So there are two halves to the negotiations, Network Rail and the train operating companies. Network Rail made us an offer back in midsummer, which they've tinkered with but haven't changed substantially. So it's still not acceptable. We turned that down formally at that time, and they still have not come back with changes to their proposals, either on pay, job security, or ripping up of our members' terms and conditions. So that's still where it was, despite hundreds of hours of negotiations. With the train operating companies, it's different to that. We spent a long time talking to them, especially in the last fortnight, and at the end of it, they did not make a proposal. They said, we can't make a proposal, we're not allowed to. And then they phoned me up on, that was last Friday, they phoned me up on Saturday and said, we will make a proposal on Monday at 2, a full written offer. And then at 1:05, when we were just getting ready to go over, they said, we can't make an offer because we're not allowed to. Now, that's in the hands of the Secretary of State. The Department for Transport meets with the rail delivery group, who represents the train operators, every week and give them their instructions. So they must have given them instruction not to make the offer. That's the only logical deduction. And that is the responsibility of Mark Harper, the Secretary of State. So that's where we are. Our members are really angry about that. 6 months in and no written offer and no improvement to an original offer. So we've had to take the action that we've put on in the next couple of months.
Can you talk to me in layman's terms about this offer? I think like a lot of the wider narrative is that you're being unreasonable in what you're asking for in terms of pay. Can you talk to me about maybe people on the lower end of the scale or the terms and conditions?
Yeah, so the offer is about 3 items. There's job security. We want to secure our members' jobs who want to work in the industry. Then there are all the conditions that they work under, so how they're rostered, how their shifts work, the work that they actually do when they're on duty. For instance, the companies want to close every booking office in Britain. They want to cut safety inspections on the infrastructure. And then we've got a pay deal. We haven't had a pay offer or a pay deal for 3 years now on the railway. We've been subjected to a pay freeze. So we're not being unreasonable. While we've been in this dispute, inflation has trebled. It's gone from 3%, or in fact quadrupled, to now 14%. So we're playing catch-up on pay, and our members, like everyone else, are suffering from the cost of living crisis. Some of our people in this dispute are paid £18,000 a year. The majority are paid around about 28 to 32. And then there are some people that are high earners, like in any industry, that the people in the specialist grade. But the vast majority of our people are earning modest wages. They're in line with average earnings, 28, 30,000, 32,000. And that's for 24/7 rosters generally. Working around the clock on the railway, and we haven't had a pay increase. So that's something that they want to address, but they also want to address whether they're going to work in the industry and what they have to do to earn their living. And these are basic, fundamental industrial relations issues. So we're not being unreasonable. We'd like to stay as we were, but we're not dinosaurs. They're not allowing us to stay as we are. We've got to modernise like everyone else and adapt to new technology. We're prepared to do that, but it's got to be under an agreement rather than an imposition.
I mean, the argument from central government would be that everyone is experiencing a pay cut due to inflation and that we all need to tighten our bootstraps and get on with it. What would you say to that?
Well, everyone's not experiencing a pay cut. Our employers, the train operating companies, have made £500 million in profit in the last year they reported. So that's across the railway. So a pay rise is easily affordable. What they mean is they want to increase their profits and cut the funding. But that's what they're saying in the health service. They're saying it in the education service, in our schools and universities. They're saying it in the care industry, and they're saying it in the private sector. They're saying that working people, the people that do the work and generate the wealth in the society, have to take a lower standing of living on a permanent basis. They're already suffering that, but they're saying it's going to be driven down even further. So we've got rent and mortgage increases, we've got utility and energy bills going up at phenomenal rates. And they're saying you'll just have to put up with it. But the energy companies, for instance, are making billions. They can't believe the amount of money they're making. The government is taking their share of that in levies and is recycling it through energy companies into some kind of rebate. What they need to do is control the prices, and they could have done that if they kept public ownership. So everybody's suffering, and we're part of a movement to stop all the pain being inflicted on working people. So we want a square deal, we want a pay rise, and we want to keep our conditions, and we want job security. I think every worker in Britain has the right to demand those things and get a union that can deliver that for them.
Why do you think the Tories want to stall negotiations?
Well, they want to set an example, I think, for the whole public sector, all the people that they control. So they're sending a message to the teachers and people in the health service and everyone else that there won't be pay deals. They've said for next year that it's going to be 2.2. Inflation today is 14.6. And next year they're telling us you'll get 2.2. Inflation at the time these deals are struck in April and May time could be 20%. We don't know where it's going to be. It could be a bit lower, it could be a bit higher. But these pay offers that they're going to make certainly won't match what people need. And it's not just a question of, I want a pay rise. People need to go shopping. They need to put food on the table. They need to put shoes on their kids' feet. We've got nurses and prison officers going to food banks. And those food banks are in the hospitals and in the prisons. We'll soon have a situation where there'll be food banks in schools, not for the kids, but for the teachers and the ancillary workers who educate them and provide for them. We'll have dinner ladies, archetypal image in Britain, who will be needing to use food banks while they're serving food to children. It's a disgraceful indictment of the way the country's run, that people are being impoverished and some people are being made destitute. Now on the railway, we don't want to see that happen to our people. We've got a strong and assertive union and we're going to stand up for that, and we hope that we can spark the imagination of other workers and other unions to come in behind that and campaign for fairness and redistribution in our society.
I mean, the argument from hospitality, from various shop owners, from business owners, is that you are impeding the economy by putting these strikes on over Christmas. What do you say to that?
Well, we're not striking over Christmas. We've deliberately not put action on between the 17th of December and the 3rd of January. So the whole Christmas period is strike-free. So people should be able to travel back to their hometowns and communities and make those arrangements and enjoy themselves, hopefully, if they've got enough cash. What this economy really needs is better wages. The hospitality industry will struggle next year if the British worker doesn't get a pay rise, because nobody will be going out. People will be in their houses wearing 4 jumpers, watching what remains of public access TV, because they'll all be cancelling their subscriptions if they don't get a pay rise. And there won't be a hospitality industry if the British working class hasn't got any money to spend. So in the long term, we're on the side of the hospitality and entertainment industry and all those other sectors. And those unions, such as Equity and the musicians' unions, are right behind us. There is low pay in the hospitality industry, and they're suffering from not being able to get workers to work in those places as well. So we need a change in the way these businesses are set up. They can't be permanently working on a knife edge the way they are. We need a better deal for all workers, and that includes hospitality workers, who would say that they want a better deal as well. All those people in vulnerable and precarious employment. But if we've got better wages and people have got a few bob in their pocket, they'll be able to spend it in the hospitality and entertainment sectors.
There's a lot riding on your strike. You're probably the most infamous group that have taken strike action, and there's some suggestion that support from your members is dwindling. I mean, are you worried that the Department for Transport might force you into ceasing strike action, and it might backfire altogether and you might not reach a deal at all?
Well, I do worry about that, because they've certainly impeded the efforts to get a deal, which the employers were going to give us a hard proposal. It wasn't going to be one we liked, but at least it would have been a proposal we could consider and maybe develop. But the government has stopped that happening, and I'll be telling the Secretary of State tomorrow when I meet him that that's what he's done. The support from our members is very solid. You'll see it on the picket lines. And we just had a reballot under the government legislation, and we returned 90% yes votes on massive turnouts, even during a postal strike. So I'm not worried about that. Our members are concerned. They lose their wages. They will lose overtime payments and all the rest of it. The public, I know it's a hard sell, that being disrupted at any time from either getting to work or getting to your home is a difficult thing for people to take on. But the public has come behind us, and I think the government and the commentators in the right-wing press have been very surprised about the support we've had. We'll be looking to keep that going, but our job as trade unions is to get a deal for our members. And if that sets a tone for other workers who are maybe not properly organised and are more vulnerable than our people, that's all for the good in the long term. So we're fighting for our terms and conditions, but we're also fighting for everyone else's. And I hope people can see that point, but I understand it's a difficult message to get across.
Why do you think the tabloids have taken the government side rather than your own?
Well, the tabloids are on the side of the ruling class. I mean, people don't like this terminology. Viscount Rothermere and all the other Murdoch, the oligarch, and all the others that own the Sun, the Times, the Express and the Mail and all those outlets are on the side of driving down wages, driving down profits. Most of the people that are working on those media outlets are not employed. They've all been driven down into precarious employment, self-employed, casualised work. And they've got an agenda that wants to defeat the unions so that they can have their way. And if they get their way, most of us will be working outsourced on very low wages with very poor terms and conditions that are based on statutory minima. And when they find the statutory minima aren't enough, they'll get rid of those minima. And they're already hinting at that they're going to chuck out all the employment laws. Jacobs Rees-Mogg was very strident on it. And it's likely that they'll take away our entitlement to sick pay, they'll take away holiday pay, and they'll take away other benefits such as pensions that we seek to get from our employment, and that's their agenda. And the Mail, the Sun, the Times, the Telegraph, the Express are all fully committed to that agenda. Libertarian madness that we saw from Truss and Kwasi Kwarteng, and the reason they got sacked in the end was that it was exposed tooth and claw what they've got in mind for working people, that we subsidise the super rich and we have to take whatever they dish out to us. Mr Hunt and Mr Sunak are a bit more subtle about that, but the last budget has shown exactly what they're like. It's austerity for us and super wealth for those who run those newspapers.
Yeah, you were called the Grinch that ruined Christmas by a Daily Mail journalist yesterday, a characterisation that's appeared in quite a few tabloids this morning. I mean, what do you say to that?
Anyone would think there's some kind of consensus in the right-wing press that they've got to come up with the easiest hackneyed cliche. We're not going on strike at Christmas. That's a message. But, I mean, he was dying to say it. These are the same newspapers that will support the most reactionary elements in our society. And indeed, the Daily Mail, which the source is, they supported Adolf Hitler. They supported the black shirts. Hurrah for the black shirts, their famous headline. And they've supported some of the most reactionary, irresponsible people, including Liz Truss and Kwasi Kwarteng. They were lauding them from the rafters during that election campaign. They got those people in. And then they were exposed as the most right-wing and hostile reactionaries, militant libertarians that we've ever seen. And that's the way the press in this country is set up. And we have to break through that and get our messages across direct to the public. And the public has seen that over the last 6 months or so, that working class people can articulate their cases, and they've got a point to make in the debate in this society about how it's run and how it's balanced. And we need to rebalance it for the benefit of the majority, not the tiny minority of the super rich.
So do you agree with Keir Starmer that we should wean ourselves off of foreign labour?
Well, what we don't need is foreign labour being exploited, people being brought in on low wages. Anyone that comes to this country should be on full trade union agreements without any discrimination as to whether you're a new entrant to the country, whether you have got a different status. And what they want, if you look at what they want in agriculture, what they want in hospitality, is special visas so that we can pay those people less than people who are already here will get. So everybody needs the benefit of a strong trade union agreement with a high minimum wage so that everybody is paying tax and not living in benefits while they're working. Now, if people need to come to Britain, that's fine. But what we also need to do is protect the economies of the countries such as the Philippines and Malaysia, where we're trying to cream off hundreds of thousands in some cases of their nurses and their doctors from the former Commonwealth countries and all sorts of areas around the world where we're not training them, but we're just looking to cream off their people on often low-wage, rip-off contracts. So we need a balance, and everybody needs to be paid properly. Nobody should be illegal in this country, and nobody should be discriminated against. And we should welcome people on the basis that they get the same entitlements as the rest of us.
High-wage economy, does that mean that Labour should be on the picket line fighting for it?
Well, we need a high-wage economy. Labour needs to support working-class people in their struggles. They need to identify with the values that are socialists that founded the Labour Party, but they need to identify with the actual struggles that are going on today. People can't pay their bills. They can't fulfil their shopping requirements on what they're earning. And we're not always talking about unemployed people, people on benefits. We're talking about people in full-time employment, and they're not getting the full value of their labour because often they're having to live on benefits and ask food banks to help feed their kids and themselves. So Keir Starmer needs to identify that. He needs to work out whose side he's on. He can't afford to be neutral. He can't afford to be the vanilla man, which is what he's trying to paint himself as. And he needs to say, I am with the workers and I'm against the super rich. And we can create a fair economy based on that. And if Labour want to deliver that, they need to show that they identify with working people so that working people vote for them.